make administrative or management decisions pertaining to the daily operations of the district. This is the responsibility of the superintendent. In compliance with the State Government Code on open meetings, tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. This is a meeting in the public, not a meeting of the public, and as our guests, you are welcome to observe and listen. These proceedings are being video and audio recorded and will become part of Judson's permanent legal record. In order that the tape adequately reflects these proceedings, please silence your mobile devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that these proceedings are recorded accurately, I may have to ask for order periodically should I notice that disruptions are interfering with our recording capabilities. Once again, I extend to each of you a sincere welcome from the entire school board. Thank you for your interest in Judson ISD. I have established a quorum, and I will call roll. Ms. King?
Shatanya King, present.
Ms. Eaton?
Deborah Eaton, present.
Ms. Perez?
Lynette Perez, present.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, present.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, present.
Mr. Diaz?
Rafa Diaz, present.
I am Renee Pichelle, present. And to my immediate left is our superintendent of schools, Dr. Jeanette Ball.
Welcome.
Thank you. At this time, are we going to have our pledges, Dr. Ball? Yes, ma'am. All right, at this time, would you all please stand for our pledges and our invocation?
Guard, hold, others, turn, march, read, and others.
I'm Summer Person. I'm Arely Valentina Munoz, and we're from Crestview Elementary. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Yo prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. Honro la bandera de Texas. Te juro lealtad a ti, Texas, un estado ante Dios único y indivisible.
Harry, others. Others, turn, march. Owen, march.
I ask you to remain standing for the invocation. Heavenly Father, as we begin the holiday season and we have the week of Thanksgiving, we ask you to continue to bless us. Bless this extraordinary staff of Judson ISD, individuals that work so hard to do so much for our students. Bless our board members that care deeply about our staff and our students. We ask for your blessings upon us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We are now at item 2 on our agenda, recognitions.
Good evening. First, I'd like to recognize tonight's presentations of the colors. They were brought to you virtually by the Judson High School Junior ROTC Color Guard, whose members include Commander Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Peacock, Cadet Colonel Gianna Frazier, Cadet Lieutenant Reina Blaylock Ortega, and Cadet Zoe King. Our Pledge of Allegiance and Texas Pledge were led by Summer Burson and Arely Valentina Munoz from Crestview Elementary. And now we'd like to present to you some recognitions from our wonderful community in Judson ISD. Our first recognition, you may remember from last meeting, Mr. Ian Fernandez. He is a senior at Wagner High School. And last month, we talked about him and him earning, being a semifinalist for the National Merit Scholarship. This time he's at it again, and we'd like to say congratulations to Ian on earning a spot in the Texas Music Education Association All-State Orchestra. To earn a spot, students must practice select cuts of some very difficult music. This is a prestigious event. TMEA only took 120 violinists out of the 400 who auditioned. This is the second year he has earned this honor. We are very proud of Ian. Next, we'd like to highlight our Energy Management Department for Judson ISD. The Judson ISD Energy Management Department continues to partner with CPS Energy on a number of different energy conservation projects, and the effort is reaping benefits in a big way. This year, our Energy Management Department received a rebate incentive check for $359,696. And CPS has also mentioned that Judson ISD is one of the top performers in Bexar County. We are so grateful for the leadership of David Ayler and Andy Jimenez for going above and beyond to make sure we are energy efficient. TEA has designated Copperfield Elementary as a Purple Star campus. The Purple Star campus designation celebrates the work campuses provide to military-connected students. This special honor, created by the 86th legislature through Senate Bill 1557, is earned by meeting very specific criteria, such as creating a web page to help military-connected students and families, providing a campus transition program, participating in the Month of the Military Child, or creating a resolution showing support for military-connected students and families. The Copperfield Elementary exemplifies high levels of support and commitment to meeting the unique needs of our military-connected students and their families. The staff consistently responds to the educational and social-emotional needs, challenges military-connected children face during their transition to a new school. They keep them on track to be college, workforce, and life-ready. There were only 106 designations of the Purple Star campus across the entire state of Texas. Judson ISD is proud of the Copperfield family and their commitment to their military community. And from Kitty Hawk Middle School. The Kitty Hawk Middle School debate team competed in their first speech and debate tournament that took place virtually in Mississippi. And while the team did very well, one stood out among the rest. 7th grade student Arnasia Leitard competed in the poetry division for middle school students and took 6th place in the nation. She is on her way to solidifying her place for nationals at the end of the year. These tournaments are very unique because the students get to talk about what they are passionate about and what drives their success. Arnasia thrives when given opportunities to compete and perform, and she has a passion for sharing her message through poetry. Her poetry program for this event was inspired from literary works by Langston Hughes, Charles Water, and Frederick Douglass. She puts race, ethnicity, ancestry, and overcoming discrimination at the forefront of her piece. Her program is entitled, I Too Am America. We are elated to have such an articulate and thoughtful young lady represent Kitty Hawk and Judson ISD. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Ball, who will announce our final recognition. Good evening.
hear me okay? There we go. Good evening. So we're going to take something out of order, and anybody that sees our agenda sees that we are going to be losing a board member. Well, really 2 board members. So we want to take some time to recognize a board member that has her family here with us. This individual is an individual that has been with us a short time, but we have grown to love her. And she has been an excellent role model for me and for other individuals in our community. Not only is she a public figure, but she's also an author. And if people haven't read her book is amazing. So I was very honored to read it. So at this time, I would like to ask the board to come up. We're going to social distance, so our line is going to be a little different, so please social distance. And then we have a plaque that we would like to honor Ms. Pettis with. So I'm going to read it. It says, Lynette Pettis, to honor your service on the Judson ISD Board of Trustees, your guidance as a member has strengthened the bond between the community and the district. What is very unique also about Ms. Pettis is the relationship that she has with our students. She built this relationship before she even started with the board and helping serve our community, specifically Judson High School and the students there. So on behalf of myself and the board, we'd like to sincerely thank you for serving with us.
Thank you, Dr. Ball, and my distinguished colleagues.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I love Judson ISD. It's been a 12-year run for me. I moved here in 2008 as a single mom who had been unemployed for 18 months. And my mom suggested, why don't you just become a sub-teacher? And I did. And that's when I first met Mr. Fields. I was one of his subs at Wagner. And I was asked to substitute at all the middle schools and at Judson High School. And it was those years that really shaped and molded my professional interests when I went to law school. In fact, I worked as a sub-teacher all throughout law school, helped pay my bills, this Judson ISD. And yes. And through working with children, which I really hadn't done up close and personal before Judson ISD, I became a child welfare and juvenile lawyer. And every day, as a lawyer, I would go and represent the best interests of children. And so when the high school needed a mock trial coach, I immediately said, I have to be that coach because that's my school, Judson High School. And I did that for 3 years. And then shortly thereafter, I saw there was a vacancy on this board. And so I put my hat in the ring and was elected by the citizens all throughout the community. And it's been the pinnacle, but it was something that started 12 years ago. And that's the beauty of Judson ISD. You can start off as a sub-teacher and within a decade be, a policy maker. It's possible. And I would just like to say that, I've been someone who's been in the public sector most of my adult life and served on various boards and commissions in different communities. This has been the most wonderful, delightful, and positive experience of all of the boards and commissions I've ever served on, because everyone was of a common vision. It was all about what was in the best interest of kids. And we had this pandemic hit us, and we're like, we still got to feed kids. We still got to educate kids. We have to make sure they have access to education, and everyone was on board with it. And you can see that most of our votes are unanimous. I mean, every now and then there may be a quirk here and there, but for the most part, we are of one vision. And so I will miss you. I will miss your thoughtfulness, but I leave knowing that these children are going to be left with the best leaders in the San Antonio community looking out for their best interests. And you can walk away knowing that the best is yet to come. I have no doubt. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yes, ma'am. We also have another board member that we would like to also congratulate for serving. So give me 1 second. Let me get the plaque. Again, this is out of order from the agenda, but we have a plaque for Mr. Diaz, which is to honor your service on the Judson ISD Board of Trustees. Your guidance as a member has strengthened the bond between the community and the district. So please come up, sir, and say a few words.
I didn't want to fall in the net at all. And then she almost cried, or I think cried, and I'm a big crier, so that's not going to help at all. That's not going to help at all. A little over a year ago, the district needed somebody to replace one of our trustees, and there were wonderful applicants throughout the community in District 4 that applied for it, and I was one of them. And I remember walking in, and wait till I get to the kids. It's going to get really bad. No, but I remember walking in and telling them, look, these are my gifts. This is what I have to offer. These are my lenses. This is my perspective. The drive is based on my children. So those positionalities allowed me to be able to respectfully offer my service. And I remember saying, hopefully you can find somebody better, because we deserve it. Every community does. So that was my position, right? So very servant leader oriented, because I think that's moral imperative. And I promised to always operate from the intersectionality of where my fatherhood is, with good policy, good governance, community building. But that drive, that is from my children, because I'm a dad. Catalina's 4, Fafita's 3, and they will provide gifts to this community, but also require support. And this is what this district does for my children, but more importantly, it does it for all children. Some people look at public service as a sacrifice. I think it's very much an investment. We invest ourselves, we invest partnership, thought partnership, active participation. But I have a reality. So, my reality is that my family is growing, and unfortunately, as we grow, we need a bigger home. So, I'm going to be stepping down from the board because at some point I will once again ask my colleagues for their consideration when I apply for the at-large seat. And I wanted to do this in a very transparent manner. That's why I'm stepping down. But I'm hoping, to find that intersectionality where I can continue to invest in this district while continuing to invest in my own family. So, with that said, I will continue to tell the board and the community, I hope that the application stack is large. I hope people come with a servant leader mindset, a growth mindset, guided by, what they think is right. I will be one of those folks once again. But at the end of the day, it's whoever this board believes will help them achieve a greater iteration of what Judson is. Because that year-over-year growth, that investment of our time and gifts is what's ultimately important. And it's not just with one person. So, with that said, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful time with the board. I appreciate you allowing me to invest. That's it.
This is really difficult. It is. I would like to say these are two wonderful people, and they have strengthened our board. And I'm just very proud. For those of you that have been here for a while and you know the dynamics of these boards, Ms. McKinney, you've sat in that seat for as many years as I used to sit in the back. But here's what I know. This is a solid board. This is a very, very solid board. We are solid and we are unified. And as Ms. Perez said, when you look at those minutes and you see how many unanimous decisions have been made, that lets you know how close-knit we are, not only with one another, but we have that type of professional, close-knit relationship with Dr. Ball and her staff. They are the best staff this side of Bexar County, heaven, and anywhere else. This is the best staff, and it works because of the leadership. So at this time, I just want to say thank you, Ms. Perez. Thank you, Mr. Diaz. And thank you, colleagues, for you being the type of board members that you are. And at this time, we're going to take a short little break and honor these people. Okay? Thanks. So what do you say we about
15 minutes?
15 minutes? Okay. It is 5:30. We will adjourn. We're going to reconvene into open session. It is 6:43 p.m. And we will move on to item 3, the acknowledgement of visitors and citizens to be heard. We don't have any. Okay, then we move on to item 4. Consideration of consent items. I will read each one of the items, and if there is any board member that would like to have it pulled, just let me know. Item A, 4A, consider and take action regarding approving board minutes from the regular meeting held on October the 15th, 2020. B, consider and take action regarding approving monthly financial information as of September 30th, 2020. C, consider and take action regarding approving expenditures equal to or greater than $50,000. D, consider and take action regarding approving budget transfers across expenditure function categories. E, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the submittals for requests for a competitive sealed proposal 21-05, Crestview Elementary, modernizations and improvements. F, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the engineering firms for services related to the material testing phase of the construction of at Crestview Elementary. G, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the architectural firms for services related to RFQ 16-07, architectural services, Pat Booker property. H, consider and take action regarding approving the Campus Improvement Plan Executive Summary Reports. I, consider and take action regarding approving the targeted improvement plans for the campuses that are required to implement state-directed interventions, Kirby Middle School, Metzger Middle School. J, consider and take action regarding approving a resolution authorizing the sale of a 0.2755-acre tract of land located at Selma Park Estates. K, consider and take action regarding approving Texas College Bridge participation data sharing and requirements agreement 2020-2021 application for Texas College Bridge. All right, so that completes the consent items. We will, do I have a motion for items A through H, J, and K?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as you just have noted, pulling item I for discussion.
I'm going to ask Ms. Perez, would you please turn on your mic and repeat your motion?
Yes, Madam President, I move that we approve the consent agenda 4A through K, pulling item I for discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'll start with Ms. King.
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Eaton?
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Ms. Perez?
Lynette Perez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Mr. Diaz?
Rafa Diaz, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. That motion passes unanimously. And now we'll go on to item I. Was that pulled by you, Ms. Eaton?
Madam President, I just noticed something. I apologize. That we have a binder here with the same two schools, so we're going to talk about this, right?
Dr. Ball, would you answer her, please?
That is a hard copy. So what you also had it in your packet. So what you're provided there is a hard copy. So we're definitely willing to answer any questions, but we were not going to talk
Well, I think the missing information that I needed
Is in there?
undoubtedly is in here.
Oh, okay.
Because it's the Metzger and Kirby.
Okay.
So,
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. I apologize, Madam President.
Is there a motion for item I?
I make a motion that we accept item I as read.
Second.
I make a motion that we accept item I as read and with the additional information.
All righty, and is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll start with Mr. Diaz. Mr. Diaz?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Perez?
Lynette Perez, aye.
Ms. Eaton?
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Ms. King?
Shatanya King, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. That motion passes unanimously.
I apologize, ma'am. Was there a second on that?
Yes, ma'am. It was seconded by Mr. Diaz.
Thank you very much.
We will move on now to discussion and consideration of action items. 5A, consider and take possible action regarding the approval of inductees to the Judson ISD Civic and Athletic Hall of Honor as selected by the Hall of Honor Committee. Dr. Ball.
Yes, ma'am. As everybody knows, this year has been quite different. COVID has caused us to do things very differently. We started the process of having our athletic and our civic halls of honor applications submitted before we knew what would happen to the event in which we have traditionally honored them. So now that we know that we will not have our traditional gala because of COVID, we met and we discussed it with the committee, and we would like to ask the board that for this year, we suspend selecting somebody for the civic and for the athletic hall of honor, for the fact that one of the wonderful things about this honor is that we get to celebrate with them. They bring their family members. We get to honor them at our beautiful gala. The gala, as we have known it in the past, will not happen this year. We're hoping that we will be able to pick it up again the following year. But for that reason, we would like for the board to approve our recommendation that we suspend it for this 1 year.
My only question would be, for those nominees, for those applicants that were nominated,
Yes, ma'am.
how will they be told that they will have an opportunity to resubmit for next year? What is the plan?
Yes, ma'am. So both the nominator and the nominee will receive a letter. The nominator will receive a letter explaining to them what it is that we're doing differently and why. And then the nominee will receive a letter saying, congratulations for being nominated and being recognized for your hard work, and that they do have the opportunity to be put back into the hat for future years.
Thank you.
That he was trying to, beef up on my.
Ms. Canoyer?
Yes, and I just want to clarify that it's not that we're not having a gala. We're going to have a virtual gala, which will be something completely different. We're just not going to gather in person and risk anybody's health. So because of that, the logistics just don't fit to hold and honor those people the way we want to. So I'm in full support of this motion.
Anyone else? All right, then. Is there a motion for item 5A?
I move that we follow the superintendent's recommendation to suspend the honorees for 1 year.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. We'll start with Ms. King.
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Eaton?
Aye.
Ms. Perez?
Lynette Perez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Mr. Diaz?
Rafa Diaz, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. This motion passes unanimously. And Dr. Ball, we are, as you can see, in full support of this. We realize that it's only for this year.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Item 5B, consider and take possible action regarding the approval of an employee retention incentive to be paid during the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am. Excuse me. One of the things that the board has always charged me with, and we have discussed many times, goes back to our leadership definition, and then also goes back to our strategic priorities that we have spent a lot of time developing. And in that, we talk about how we want to always take care of our staff. We want to treat people well. So that is what our next agenda item is It's about making sure that we treat our people in our system well. That is following what we have said as a district that we would do and what the board has charged me with. At the beginning of this school year, I shared with the board and with the staff that our budget constraints were going to be a challenge this year, and that we were going to really rely on making sure we had good attendance and high enrollment. And that if in any way possible, I would bring back to the board a proposal to incentivize our teachers. And when I say teachers, I mean all our staff, all our full-time employees. This year, I think all of us have seen how our full-time employees have come together, whether it's to feed our students, transport our students, teach our children virtually and face-to-face. The staff of Judson ISD has done a tremendous job. They have done it with so much passion, so much heart, and caring for our kids. That though our situation for our budget is not exactly where we would like it to be, we still feel it's very important to offer them an incentive of a retention. So our proposal is that for every full-time employee, we were to offer them the retention incentive of $750. There's approximately 3,350 employees in our district, so this would be an estimated cost of about $2.5 million. So I would certainly take any questions that the board would have over this item.
Ms. Eaton?
Oh, you called me first. Where would the money come from, Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am. The money would be coming from our fund balance. So if you would notice, because I want to be very transparent, that we are still in a deficit. Yes, ma'am. We would still be in a deficit budget, but we are working so hard to make sure that we do more with less. Our estimated deficit would still be about $2.7 million. I cannot guarantee that that deficit will stay that exact same way at the end of the year, but I can tell you that we're doing everything to maximize our federal dollars, our grants, continue to be very frugal. But at this time, I do feel that our employees deserve an incentive.
I'm going to support this item because they do deserve. They do deserve. And the conditions in which our teachers, custodians, child nutrition, everybody in the district, the conditions in which they're working are stressful conditions. And if there is anything that we can do to make anything easier for them, I support.
Thank you. I would like to go back to Ms. Eaton's question because I do want to be very clear. So when this budget year started, we started with the deficit of 2.7. Adding this incentive will add to the deficit, but it is still my recommendation that we do this for teachers. For all staff,
I just had one
Yes,
other.
Ms.
How did
Kanoy.
you come up with that number, just out of curiosity?
So we came up with several numbers. We came up with everything from $500 to $1,500. We looked at what would be the fairest way to incentivize, our employees, also without making our deficit outrageous.
I had a question. If part of the goal is I understand the incentive part, but going to the retention part, are there any caveats that have to be met for the employee to receive it?
Yes, you would have had to have been employed with us currently.
Okay. But do they need to remain the entire academic year or anything along those lines, I guess?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Ms. Kanoy.
Thank you. I think everybody knows that I've always been a proponent of paying our teachers, paying our staff doing what we can. It was very difficult to start the year off and know that we were in a precarious situation with our budget and not having any clue what to expect financially through the year, because we are in these, I keep using the metaphor, uncharted waters, but that's where we are. I've seen how hard our teachers are working. The schools are posting on Facebook all the things that they're doing to try to engage our students. I know some teachers are doing face-to-face and remote learning simultaneously, and it's incredibly stressful. So I am complete support of this item. I see that it's going to be paid if this passes in December, so it should come out in time for the holidays, which, Merry Christmas, a little bit of happiness there. And all of our employees work so hard that we're very appreciative, and I fully support this.
I'd also like to share with the board that we have received approximately about $2 million in reimbursement for purchases, and those purchases are specifically technology purchases. And I'm going to ask Mr. Atkins if he wants to share anything specifically about that. I know he has all the details.
Yes, ma'am. Board, thank you. One of the things, we had about a $2.7 million deficit when we adopted the budget. And then we came back to you immediately and asked for an additional $3.75 million. We budgeted very conservatively. We budgeted that we were going to be down 3% on our ADA and 5% increase in values. We are up about 200 students over last year, this year. The only district in Bexar County, I believe, that's up. Our values came in about 10%. So that helped our deficit. And then the federal government has been sending out some CARES Act fund, and they're going to reimburse us about $2.1 million for the technology purchases that we made previously. And the one caveat, we're doing this very similar to the last incentive you did. And so it's full-time employees that were employed on September 1st and still employed on December 1st. So that's what we'll do. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
This is the CARES Act reimbursement. That's federal dollars. I remember the state of Texas also saying they're going to give funds for technology purchases, but that's not reimbursement. That's like new purchases of technology. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's all federal dollars. It's being flowed through either TEA or the Texas Department of Emergency Management.
Got it. So it's the same money.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
Got it. Thank you.
So I just want to speak in favor of this. We have some challenges, some fiscal challenges, as every district does. However, the reason why Judson has been diversifying its programmatic approach in the PK4, PK3 programming is so we can not only capture more students, but do so in a way that we provide excellent educational opportunities. A byproduct of that is what Mr. Atkins just said, which is we now have additional dollars and the only districts have grown in the Bexar County area. So I think that's incredibly important to note as we start forecasting for future growth. But the other aspect of that is that we have a product that we produce, which are our scholars of all ages, and that requires not only adequate compensation and treatment of educators, but of all staff members, because they all have a crucial impact on that student's environment, in their learning, in every aspect of what goes into making a well-rounded scholar. So I appreciate you focusing in on ensuring that this is an equitable approach, that we're trying to ensure that in a small way give them a token of our appreciation, but that's very well deserved. And frankly, they deserve a lot more, but we're operating within the bounds. And then the other aspect of this is that I want to make completely clear from my perspective is that there's a reason why we have the fund balance. This is to ensure that our operations continue. This is an imperative move for us because we need to make sure that our talent in every aspect of our operations, from maintenance to the food service professionals to educators and administrative supportive staff, are in place, because it's too crucial for us to have a kink in this. So I just wanted to offer that and my support.
Well, is there anyone else? Well, then,
It won't be very
I make-
eloquent, but I motion to approve the agenda item as presented.
okay.
I'll
Is-
second.
Sorry.
All right, it has been moved and seconded, and I will start with you, Mr. Diaz.
Rafa Diaz, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer,
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Perez,
Lynette Perez, aye.
Ms. Eaton,
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Ms. King,
Shatanya King, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye, and I am very proud to say that this motion passes unanimously. Item 5C, consider and take possible action regarding approving the change order for sewer-related issues for RFCSP 1920 Woodlake Elementary School modernizations and improvements. Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am. Last month, we shared with the board that there were some issues at the campus at Woodlake Elementary. On Monday, several board members joined us for a tour and got to see firsthand that there are some issues. So the team has developed a plan with an expenditure of almost a little over $1.3 million. This would cover taking care of the brand new sewer system that needs to be put into Woodlake Elementary so they can continue with the project. So we are asking the board to approve this change order. Sorry, I don't know why, I have something stuck in my throat. So we can continue with the project at Woodlake Elementary.
Is there any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank our facilities department for the excellent tour. Seeing exactly where the issues were and how they were going to be repaired was very, very helpful. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, it was a great tour. Thank you. Thank you to the facilities department, Ruben, Jose, and Dr. Fields, obviously. Is there a motion for item C?
Move to approve the change order as requested.
I second it.
It has been moved and seconded. Ms. King, what say you?
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Eaton?
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Ms. Perez?
Lynette Perez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Mr. Diaz?
Rafa Diaz, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Item D, consider and take possible action regarding approving the transfer of certain bond proceeds from Proposition 2 to Proposition 1 of the district's 2016 bond election in order to complete various items associated with Woodlake Elementary School upgrade. Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am. So this scope of work that we were just talking about at Woodlake Elementary was not part of the original bond, so this was not budgeted for. As all of y'all know, Wortham Oaks has now been completed, and it's a beautiful campus, and there are funds remaining there. That is from the 2016 bond. So what we are asking for this is that we take the funds from the project of Wortham Oaks Elementary in the amount of $1.5 million and transfer those to Proposition 2, which is the Woodlake Elementary proposition.
Okay.
And I sure hope I got all my propositions right.
Is there any discussion? May I have a motion for this item, please?
I move that we approve the transfer of funds as recommended.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Let's start with Mr. Diaz.
Rafa Diaz, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Perez?
Lynette Perez, aye.
Ms. Eaton?
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Ms. King?
Shatanya King, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. That motion passes unanimously. Item E, consider and take, we'll do that in closed session. Let's move on to item 6, discussion items and reports Item A, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Ball.
Yes, ma'am. In your packet, everybody does have the construction report. So if at any time after you've had time to review that, if you have any questions, please feel free to call us.
Okay. And item B, Texas Association of School Boards, TASB presentation, and I believe that's going to be by
Zoom.
Mr. Orrin Moore.
Yes. So the board had asked me to get some information in regards to the possibility of having some board training. We did contact 3 systems, one of them being TASB, Region 20, and Leadership ISD. Unfortunately, the individual from Leadership ISD is not going to be able to join us after all tonight because she is ill. But we're very excited to have Orrin from TASB share with us a brief presentation. I've given each individual 15 minutes to share with us what their organization could provide the board, and then give the opportunity to the board members to ask any questions. We can unmute him. Orrin, can you hear us? If you'll give us a thumbs up. Do you hear us, Orrin? Awesome. Orrin, I would like to introduce you to our Judson ISD board members.
He's muted.
Oh, I think you're still muted, Orrin.
Okay, let me close one of my meetings. I was watching the meeting live.
Okay,
Okay, can you hear me now?
we sure can.
Okay. And should I begin? Is now the time to begin?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you all so much for having me. First, thanks. Secondly, I want to just, compliment you, commend you for just thinking about your own professional development, especially during a time like this. I know you have so much on your plates and your time is invaluable, but I really do appreciate any opportunity to share with leaders of districts opportunities for improving their governance protocols, their governance structures, et cetera. So I'm excited to share with you about the exceptional governance work that we've been doing at TASB. I love talking about it, and I'm happy to answer any questions after I go over a brief presentation. So without further delay, let me do a quick sound check and make sure you all are hearing me well.
Yes, we are.
Okay, yes, we are. Okay. I'm going to share just one graphic, and then I'm going to come back face to face because I think the most valuable use of our time would be a face-to-face conversation. But I do want to give you an overview about what to expect if you were to commit to the exceptional governance development process. And then, of course, give you an opportunity to answer or ask any questions, answer questions you have. So let me share just one slide, and then I'm going to ask for a confirmation that you all are able to see the XG development overview.
Yes, we are.
All right. So let me begin with session 1. It's entitled What's at Stake? And during that session, we asked board members and the superintendent, what's at stake for public education? What's at stake for Judson ISD? If business continues as is, what's at stake? During that session, we also encouraged board members and the superintendent, that governance team, to line up with a vision, because that vision will be what drives the work for the remainder of our time together. You see on the screen there that we have scheduled 5 sessions. That's kind of the baseline. That could turn into 6 sessions depending on how recently a district has revisited their vision statement. If the district is really comfortable with their vision, they feel like they have the right vision in place, and it really illustrates what they want for their community, it really describes the greatest hopes for the community, then we've seen districts complete this in about 5 sessions. If there is another need for a session to kind of hash out redefining or revamping the vision, then you'll see districts often complete this in 6 sessions. In session 2, we talk about essential levers. That's a fancy way of saying what are the conditions in your district, the items and things that you can move or activate to create success and have impact. We look at 7 key levers, and these are based on research from school improvement, school reform, and we basically assess to what degree and if these levers or these conditions are being practiced in your district. I'll give you a good example. Looking at the employee retention incentive you just passed, that would fall under, I think, condition number 6. creating a supportive workplace for staff. What are we doing to make sure that staff truly feel appreciated and that they know we recognize their contribution and their importance to the operation? And I think Mr. Diaz said it really well, and I'm going to put it in my own words because I can't recall exactly how he stated it. He said it's important that we treat those frontline workers really well, that they know how important they are to the operation and the mission. Without those frontline workers, our system will break down. So it was exciting to see that go just 7-0, unanimously passed, that you all are going to give your employees that retention incentive. That's one example of something that you will talk about in session 2. In session 2, we also invite in key cabinet members from the superintendent's cabinet or other key employees from the district, those district level administrators. The reason why is because it's a very unique learning opportunity. Those people you employ are experts in their fields. They know more about your system than any of us would ever know because they are working in the system daily. We invite them in to help the board understand how those 7 conditions are being utilized in your system. So from there, those cabinet members, those administrators, they stay with us for the remaining of the session. In session 3, we look at data. It's called taking stock. This is basically the current state of your district. How are things academically? How are things systemically? Basically, whatever data you have to show that really paints the picture of Judson ISD, where it is and where it's headed, we have a look at. This is probably one of the most important sessions. The reason why is because the hallmark of this session is trust and openness. We start out at the beginning by saying, no blame, no shame, no excuses. And one of our consultants loves to say, we look at data with a flashlight, not a hammer. In other words, we look at data to illuminate. We want to see where we can improve, where there's opportunity for shoring up our offerings, our operations for the district. And then from there, we begin to set goals based on the vision that we have, based on what's realistic, based on how we can stretch and challenge ourselves and our system because we have the highest expectations. Now, after we look at where we're going to go, we set goals. It makes sense in session 4 to create a structure. That structure safeguards what it is that you just committed to. If we looked at reading or math or some other system, our systems, RTI process, whatever the case may be, and decided to improve parts of our system or to set academic goals, it follows then that the board would create a structure for making sure that progress on those items identified is monitored appropriately. So collaboratively with those cabinet members, with the board, with the superintendent, we develop a board monitoring document. It includes a calendar, it includes evidence of attainment, it includes the evidence of achievement, and of course, again, just making sure that you appropriately monitor what you say is important. There's also ample opportunity to talk about the instruments used to measure success and progress. We've had districts create custom measuring documents. In other words, they wanted to measure a particular process in their system. There was no TEKS for it. So they developed their own measures, their own rating system. And then, of course, the board and the cabinet superintendent agreed to that, and they used that for their own measuring plumb line. The reason that's important to me as a facilitator is because we encourage board members and teams to measure what matters. And sometimes that measure or that scale doesn't exist, and you have to create it. And so that's the beauty of having that open, honest conversation. You find that you might want something that doesn't exist, and then you have the smartest heads to getting together in the room and then figuring out how to do that. Now, we believe that no hard, laborious effort would be complete without a continuous improvement process. So in session 5, entitled Oversight for Excellence, we invite the board and the governance team to continuously look back at data. There's no need to go back to square one. Sometimes, possibly. But typically, year after year, we invite the board and that team to go back to session 3, take stock, look at data. Where did they achieve? Where did they meet their goals and expectations? Where did they fall a little short? And then, of course, going forward and understanding how to improve that. So that's session 5, excellence for oversight, making sure that that continuous improvement process is accounted for, and then going forward from there. Now, I'm going to go back to face-to-face mode. I know that was kind of a high-level overview, but I want to hear what questions you have before I tell you a bit of a personal insight that I've gained from doing this with several boards of different size districts and different regions of the state. So that being said, the floor is open. What questions can I answer for you? What can I elaborate upon deeper?
Are there any questions? Oren, can you hear me?
I can.
I think you were very comprehensive. I don't see that there are any questions. Oh, okay. Mr. Diaz does.
Hey, Oren, sorry, I was trying to process some things. First off, thank you so much for the presentation. It was great. And these might be unfair questions or more so your opinions. So as we vet out organizations to help us strengthen how we approach and how we innovate and how we grow organizationally, what would you say that your specific value proposition is that would be difficult for us to find anywhere else?
Good question.
You know, in just a brief survey, I would say our value proposition is the research behind the work and the process that we offer. It is evidence-based, research-based. It goes back to the late 1990s up into the early 2000s when this work began. So it's one thing to look at what helps systems thrive and strive, and beyond just surviving, and then nothing to just impose potentially a method or a one-size-fits-all blanket. The research started there, but what we found is as we replicate some of these studies, it just corroborates what we found early on about effective board practices. And the other thing I would say that really is an amazing value proposition is the research is active. About a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we held an XG Summit in which we invited just fresh out of the classroom PhD candidates shared their research about how effective XG governance has been for districts employing the methods. And they found a statistically significant correlation between boards that had gone through XG training and then success in student outcomes. So having that research be alive and active, I think is probably the most valuable proposition that I would offer.
Cool. I meant to say thank you, Oren, not cool.
But it's also cool.
But cool nonetheless. Oren, another question for you. Is there a specific organization, is there a specific organizational persona that gravitates towards XG? And what I mean to say by that is, do you find that organizations that you all train are at a specific critical point, or does it span the entire gambit of experiences? And the reason for my question is that our board leadership, and especially the veterans on this board, have ensured that we have learned culturally and that we're in a great spot. And I think more importantly, everybody on the board is looking to see great spot's good, but how do we get to an even better spot, right? So is your program geared towards organizations that vary, or do you find that it's for a specific type?
Well, I will say that the one factor that should be in place is what you mentioned. Boards have to be hungry. For a board that is asking itself, what is the next step, the next level, that is a prime candidate for XG development. This is purely elective. That fact alone will let you know that a board has to be willing to invest in the time and energy. And so you already jumped into the part that I mentioned. I would give you additional insight, and that was to share what kind of board I think benefits the most from XG. The short answer is a committed board. Boards that understand that we are a good team and we want to intentionally improve so that our kids benefit from our development. That is an XG ready board. Now, mechanically, we have seen boards from all parts of the spectrum, boards that were just new teams together, understanding about basic governance, boards comprised of fairly new board members, and then we've seen other districts looking for solutions to challenges that they're having, even with veteran board members. We have found that, some of each kind of board has had major success with XG, but the boards that benefit the most, again, are those that truly dig in, are willing to be vulnerable and open and honest with each other, the superintendent and the board, and those boards in which, or those governance teams in which boards and superintendent members are all for it. In other words, it doesn't work as well if just a superintendent recommends it or if only a board recommends it. because we call it whole board development, whole governance team development.
Oren, could you, I'm sorry, Madam President.
No, go ahead.
Could you also talk about the component, since I've been through this, the component of how this training also really allows district members, board members to really get to know the district at a different level in the way that you dig deeper into the data, present information. One of the things that the board has asked me about before is kind of to give them glimpse of what maybe departments or certain areas do. And I remember a very strong component of that. So could you speak a little bit about that?
Sure. So beginning in session 2 and all the way through 4, it is exactly what you described. It is the board having just an open opportunity to ask question after question of the superintendent's cabinet. And so you might be used to getting data from particular designees and you're familiar with them, but this is a time set aside not for them only to report, but for you to ask questions. And so we look at how those 7 conditions, again, are played out and to what extent they exist at Judson. We'll show you the 7 conditions, give you a briefing, and you ask questions. I'll give you one example of the outcome of such an intimate conversation. After one district had gone through sessions 1 through 3, they decided that they were going to understand their PLCs better, how these learning communities impact the district and student learning. The superintendent said, you know what, we've talked about this so much, I don't think a report would do you justice. When the time comes to update you on this progress measure, I want you to come in and see a PLC in action. And so that was a decision based on trust. The superintendent did not have to offer that level of observation to the board members. But because it was a priority area and they had invested so much time and energy into understanding it, the superintendent felt like a report update would be best served by them watching that in action. So you get the idea of just how much of an understanding and how much knowledge about your system that you govern you will gain through these conversations and what comes out on the back end of those conversations.
Oops, sorry, we are at our 15 minutes, so I don't
Sure.
know if there's any closing words, Oren, or a closing question.
Just again, thank you for your time. Thank you for the hard work that you're doing. And thank you for honoring teachers and educators the way you did. That was just amazing and warming to watch and hear.
Thank you, Oren, for your presentation. As always, we enjoy hearing and seeing and talking with you. And we are going to move on. Thank you so much. And
Well,
happy
take care.
Thanksgiving to you.
Same to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Board, so at this time through Zoom, we will invite our next individual, and most of you know Ed Vara. Ed has done some training with us before. Ed is with Region 20, and we can let him in. Ed is going to talk to us about the training that Region 20 provides and that he has provided for many school districts, and I think all of y'all probably know Ed. So when Ed comes in, we'll let him go.
Okay, excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, Ed, we can hear you. We can't see you, but thank you for being, there we go. Thank you.
Hey, sorry, just switching off because I too was tuning in on the other set. So first of all, board members, it's very good to see you again in this very different time. And Dr. Ball, thank you for inviting us to talk a little bit about Lone Star governance. And welcome to staff members and community that are tuning in as well. What I'd like to share with you is a presentation I put together just to talk a little bit about Lone Star governance. And then we'll take some questions afterwards if that will work for you. So I want to share, first of all, Lone Star Governance is an initiative that started at the Texas Education Agency, and then folks were trained, and we have actually 4 trainers at Region 20 that provide this. And I'm going to send this PowerPoint to you, Dr. Ball, to share with the board members. I just want to let you know that there are some embedded links here. So for example, when you go to this link, it takes you straight to TEA for you to learn more about Lone Star governance if you wish to find out additional information. And so there are embedded links here in this presentation. One of the big phrases that we use in Lone Star governance is that student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change. And that's not just a nice little saying that we have, it is really the backbone of the approach and the training. And I think we need to be sure that we communicate to you that this is not just a training. This is really a commitment that a board would make to looking at their mindset, their skills, and their knowledge, so that the focus is clearly on students and not the adult convenience. And, you know, that's something that we often say, but we encourage throughout this professional development to look for the evidence that supports that we're willing to make a change in our adult behaviors where necessary that positively impacts student outcomes. One of the other sayings that we have is that what happens in the boardroom happens in the classroom. So clearly it starts at the top and resonates through the entire organization. The purpose of Lone Star governance is to provide coaching and support through a continuous improvement framework. And that's really the focus, continuous improvement. We do it without judgment, and that's an important point. We recognize where we are, and we move forward to the degree that individuals and the board choose, so that's the other word that's highlighted here, to intensely focus on the objective of improving student outcomes. And the way we do that, here's a nice little graphic. One of the things you may notice is things such as unity, structure, vision, values, accountability, advocacy are all things that are part of the State Board of Education framework. And so that is the one that is currently adopted. You may be aware that the State Board is looking at the framework, and we will be making some changes on that. But here's the other thing that's kind of interesting in this training. We dive deeply into these behaviors, and actually they frame a quarterly review, self-evaluation that the board does throughout the year. So they're looking at their behaviors that support unity and vision and values and accountability by looking at very specific behaviors and evidence of that behaviors. And the other interesting thing is this matrix that we go through has these labels. Does not meet, approaches, meets, and masters. And for those of you that may go, I think I've heard that somewhere before, those are the same performance labels that we use for student performance. And so it's really, again, looking at the board and looking at the kinds of things that start at the top and resonate through the organization. The other thing that, again, we want you to recognize is that when you go to, for example, this link, you can look here at the participant manual. Anybody can download that. What I was talking about in terms of the self-evaluation, just want to give you a sense of what that looks like. And Oren made some great connections in terms of the research, and so we'll show you some of that in a minute. But here's an example of how the board would begin to do a self-evaluation on a quarterly basis. And this one's about vision. Have they adopted goals? Have they been part of a root cause analysis? Is this something that is very specific and has 5-year deadlines in those goals and a baseline and really looking at student outcomes? Not necessarily what the adults are doing, that's important and that's in the background, but the actual measurement and the actual decisions and the evidence is around what students are doing. One of the interesting things I want to share before we move on from this is we just did one of these sessions for a school district. Actually, there were 3 school districts involved on Thursday and Friday last week. And one of those school districts brought 3 students with them. And it was quite interesting to hear their perspective about where the district was. And, you know, as we all know, they are the critical consumers of our work. And they provided a lot of interesting feedback that pushed the system and helped us all. So clearly, lots of good things. So this is just one example, and it goes on to look at the growth progress measures, etc. In the manual, I want to also share with you that one of the interesting things is right here. So Oren mentioned about research, and so where did all this come from? Was it just something that DEA created? And so here are the research studies and articles and materials that frame that development, and then some recommended books. So again, there are some things that went into this in terms of effective school boards, and Oren covered that beautifully. And so again, this is just to give an idea of so what frames this work. The other thing I want to share with you is, here's an example. I'm just going to share a couple of things from the training. One of the things that we start at the very beginning asking is, so why do effective coaches replay the game tape? Okay, I mean, and so typically people are going to say, well, of course they want to see what they did well, what they, you know, maybe see what the other team did, or to find out, you know, some areas of improvement, all of those things that we know. We're going to ask you guys to do the same thing, should you choose to do this. And that's to replay your leadership tape. And for you to think about times when maybe, you know, some of our decisions really didn't work for the system. And I'm going to come back to what we talked about, adult behaviors, or for students. And so sometimes, again, this whole idea of this, I'm going to tell you, this training is not for the faint of heart, because we ask folks to really engage in some self-reflection, reflection as a board, to look at the ownership and to really begin to answer the question of, so if student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change, then whose behavior needs to change first? It starts with me. And so to kind of begin to wrap that up, we begin to look at creating a space for people to be aware of their individual and collective actions, to acknowledge that, and then, should they choose, to make different choices around their actions that demonstrate that commitment to student outcomes. The foundation to this is the research. I just covered that. It's in the manual on page 6. So again, you'll have this once I send that to Dr. Ball. And I want to give you some logistics, because there's some details around this. We talked about, should you choose to move forward, we want to set this up and set everybody up for success. So there's an initial consultation about, so what do you want to do? The consultation isn't 2 days. It's just about, again, working with the board and the superintendent. How do we want to lay this out? So for example, clearly you want to have your board, all 7 members, the whole team of 8 together. You are going to commit, I'm just going to tell you up front, to a 2-day workshop that is an 8:30 to 5:30 day. This is a long commitment. It's intense. And those 2 days then are followed by a year-long commitment on our part, should you choose to do that, about the support. The support may not necessarily be, the other thing is we're not going to do another 2-day, but it really will look at coming to the board meeting, giving you feedback, helping you look at your self-evaluation, looking at how you set up your agenda, looking at how you spend your time, looking at things like this evening, you did consent agenda, and you pulled one item. So basically 99% of your items were done under consent, which is great. Okay, looking at striving towards moving to spending 50% of your time focusing on student outcomes. So again, depending on where the district makes those commitments, just wanted to give you some idea of some of the logistics, around this. And want to stop here and give you a chance to ask any questions that you may have.
Questions? Yes, Ms. Eaton?
Hello, how you doing, Mr. Bird?
I'm doing fine, Ms. Eaton. Nice to hear from you again.
You too, sir. You said it's a 2-day commitment for the initial training. Can it be done over a weekend?
Yes, ma'am. So we've done all kinds of combinations. For example, last week we did a Thursday, Friday. We've done a Friday, Saturday. We've even done a Saturday, Sunday. In some cases, we've even done like a Saturday one weekend and a Saturday the next weekend, because we do know that folks, have day jobs, they have other things, and it's difficult to give up the 2 days. So again, it's mutually agreed upon.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Mr. Diaz?
Of course I do. Hi, Ed. How are you, sir?
I'm fine.
Ed, you probably heard my 2 questions, and I wanted to be completely fair. Actually, let me ask you, did you hear my previous questions of Orrin? The
Yes,
value
and so I
proposition?
yes, the value proposition. So I started to answer that, but I thought I'd wait for you to ask it. So
No. So I'll just ask you the same thing, just for equity's sake.
Okay. So the value-added proposition for me is twofold. One, as Orrin said, I think it's extremely important that, number one, the board needs to decide they want to invest. Because this investment of time, it's an investment of money, but it's a longer investment of your time over a year or more, depending on what you choose to do. The value-added proposition for me is that you guys know us. We've worked with you. I've worked with you. You know that we're a critical friend. We're going to push some of these tough conversations that need to take place. And there may be some things that you may not agree with, which is just fine. There are choices that the district is making. But I will share with you as well is that whether it is the training done by Leadership ISD, which is Lone Star governance-based, or whether it's the exceptional governance, which is a great model in itself, had an opportunity to attend when they launched that. The research is the same. What you're looking for, and I think this is how it answered the second part of the value-added proposition, is find the best match for the district. Where you are now, thinking about where you want to go forward. So they both are great choices, and I'll say the third as well, even though they're not presenting tonight. They're all good choices. You're not going to go wrong. Pick the best choice for the chemistry of the group, and that will move and accelerate your work forward. Each of the 2 trustees, should you ask yourself, instead is you talked about a huge legacy that you guys have been a part of and will continue to be. Ms. Pashley, you talked about the strength of this board. Y'all aren't afraid of having tough conversations. And this is the next level of those conversations, be it Lone Star Governance or XG. You can't go wrong.
Appreciate it. And you touched on the second thing, which was something that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a critical component of your program is making sure that we are able to be self-reflective and aware and then deconstruct what we believe is accurate so we can build our leadership and then bring it to the communal table, if you will. Is that right?
Yes. So the only thing I would add to that is it's not my program, it's our program. And so that's part of what the partnership is. We have some things that we're going to ask. We have some processes in place. But ultimately, there are choices that the district will make about the degree to which they want to drive the change and the degree to which they want to hold themselves accountable. Because the other thing I'm going to tell you that, for example, when you do those quarterly self-evaluations, those are done, we suggest, in a public meeting because there's a sense of accountability to the public. And sometimes that can be a little tough. But I'll also share with you, It's transparent and it builds trust with your community.
Appreciate it, Ed.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ed, for that bit of, that tip. That's a good tip. Hadn't heard that one before. That's a pretty good tip. Thank you so much. Well, if there are no further questions, are there? I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to ask what they want. Ed, thank you so much for your presentation. It was good to see you again. And
Good to
happy
see you.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to all of y'all as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Madam President, if it's okay with you, I'll reschedule the other one for the December board meeting.
That'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay. Do we need to have Ed leave the meeting or? Oh, okay, he did. All right, let us move on then to item E, update on board advisory committees. Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am. For several years now, Judson ISD has had some traditional committees. And in looking and seeing at how we're planning to change our district, move our district forward and serve all the needs for our district, I would like for the board to consider having different committees. So one that we would call the Growth and Planning Committee. This would talk about the needs of the district to include budget needs, spending needs, anything that is needed in our district. Could be facility needs, just looking at how we want to grow our district, and not necessarily always growing with population, yes, which we do, but growing our programs, growing, the initiatives that we want. So this would be a very comprehensive committee. The other one that you probably hear about quite a bit has to do with our insurance. So we would have a committee for our insurance. And the third one would be to revamp the Hall of Honor to include the civic and the athletic. We think it's time to make sure that our application is well aligned to what we want our district to be reflected as. And one of the things that we have been talking about is we have put in a lot of time and work into our strategic priorities and making sure that the civic and the athletic Hall of Honor reflect those priorities. So those three committees would be driving a lot of the work for our district.
I would just like to add, just for the sake of those that are watching and those that are here, these three committees, well, let me remind you that the committees that the board sat on before as liaisons or as members were the Finance Committee, which included school budget, the Long Range Planning Committee, the Curriculum and Instruction Committee, and
the Bond and Facilities.
The Bond and Facilities. So taking those committees that we used to serve on and collaborating, putting it in a different form, probably still discussing those same issues as finance, but it would be in the Growth and Planning Committee. We've not had an insurance committee before that the board has served on. So, and I think I heard a little response from the Amen Corner with Ms. McKinney on insurance. Yes, insurance is something that every employee has interest in. And then revamping of the Hall of Honor application. My question about that is, it would be revamping the application and the rubric, everything. Okay, all righty. Any other discussion? Would anybody like to add anything?
I think those are, I'm sorry, I just butted in.
Go
Excuse
right
me,
ahead.
Madam President, may I
was waiting
speak?
for anybody that wanted to.
I think that those are great ideas for committees. I feel like some of our other committees have had the same 4 people attend each meeting, and I don't feel that we've been successful in reaching out to the community, which is what we want, is community input. So having this Growth and Planning Committee particularly, I think we can really look for representatives from every school area, I imagine that this is going to be a rather large committee, and I would love to see more input into that. And I think maybe it's time that we shift our focus, as you said, to align with where we've been going with our vision and planning, and where we think we're headed.
Yes, ma'am. And these committees would start in January.
Okay.
And in December, I will bring back a description of each of the committees already with the dates that the committees will be meeting. So our community, our staff can select one if they want to be a part of it. They'll know the dates, the times. We will also be offering these through Zoom.
Okay.
So we'll be bringing back a lot more information in regards to sharing that with community and with our staff, and of course with the board.
And on that note about engaging our community, because that really is something that we want to include, what are we going to do differently in order to get our community to be more involved in serving on these committees?
Yes, ma'am. So that is definitely one of our priorities. Our priorities are involving families and community. So we're going to be working closely with the campus principals, that their responsibility is going to be to make sure that they have somebody that represents their community. We're also going to be asking for nominations from the board members as to individuals that they know that are in the community that might want to also be involved. So we're going to use different forms of communication also, not just the social media, but also going back to sending out letters and emails to make sure that everybody is aware that they have a choice to participate.
Okay, thanks. Anybody? Ms. Eaton, go ahead.
Hi, I was just going to suggest two things. One, maybe send a letter to our churches throughout the district, and also to the presidents of our HOAs. At least start there, and if they can't be the representative from their area, maybe they could give us the name of a family that's very active in their HOA, that would come out. Because I know my subdivision is growing like somebody, just planted corn or something. Growing.
Thank you, Ms. Eaton. And you also reminded me that we are going to want student representation on these committees also, because we want to hear from them. Everything we do directly impacts them, and a lot of times we don't directly involve them. So we want to make sure we do that.
Dr. Ball, might I also
Yes, ma'am.
suggest that we reach out to the local city governments and see if, particularly for the Growth and Planning Committee, because they may have ideas as to how they could support us.
And a lot of them have even planning commissions. There may be people that might want to have a dual role.
I had a comment also. Number one, I think even if someday we're in a post-COVID world, I think continuing to have those meetings accessible via Zoom allows families with small children or parents of small children to be able to participate. And another thing that I was going to ask is, how will board participation be determined? Is that going to be like assigned, or we get to opt into whichever one we want, or?
Volunteers.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to wait until get volunteers once I share the dates with everybody, because I think that might be a determining factor. And all the meetings will be in the evenings.
All right, then let us move on to item 7, which is closed session. Oh, I'm sorry. 6F, update on board training, conferences, events, and consider future agenda items. Request by board members. I'll start with Mr. Diaz. Do you have anything to report, sir?
I have nothing to report, ma'am.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes, I spent this past weekend participating in the second session of Leadership TASB. That took place in San Marcos from Thursday through Saturday. And so I just wanted to tell the board a little bit about what we learned and what I got to do. First, we visited the District of Navarro ISD, which is just outside of San Marcos. It's a very small district with 1,800 students in the whole district. I didn't tell them that our high schools are bigger than their district, but they showed us their different COVID protocols that they're using, both for screening students, sanitizing classrooms. They have 90% of their students in person, which was astounding to me. And then they're also planning for very fast growth. So right now it is a very rural district, but they have 16 subdivisions that are being built in their district. And so they need to plan very quickly for new schools in their district, which was an interesting problem to have. And then on the second day, we spent our day we're doing a book study on governance. So today's presentations were very related to that. We're reading a book called The Governance Core. And then the second half of the day was spent thinking about the roles that school districts or school boards can play in racial justice. So talking about the Black Lives Matter movement and implications for school boards around that. Then finally, we are divided into research groups. So the group that I am in, the research question that we're working on is, are there social justice disparities embedded in our public school enterprises, and what are some flashpoints trustees should watch for? So that's something that I'll be investigating over the course of the year and presenting at SLI in the summer once I've done some of that research. So, and then we also have the opportunity, the different members of the group present each time about their district. So we all take turns until everybody has presented. My turn to talk about Judson will be at the next one, which is in February. So I may be reaching out to everybody for input on that presentation, and then we get critiqued on our public speaking skills. So it's all kinds of fun to be publicly critiqued about that. Thank you. I have to bring swag too, and some people set a high bar for that. Yes, I will be reaching out in January when I have thought about that a little bit more. So I just wanted to share with everybody what we've been doing.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez, and just really proud of you.
27. Mm-hmm. Okay, yes.
Okay, Ms. Canoyer?
I don't have anything at this time.
Neither do I. Ms. Press?
Nothing to add.
Ms. Eaton? Nothing. Ms. King, been to any training sessions?
No, not at this time.
Okay, all righty, thank you. At this time, then, we will go into closed session at 7:56 p.m. pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, discussing personnel, the personnel report, and updates including new hires, resignations, and administrative appointments, Chief Communications Officer, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 and 551.072, consultation with legal counsel regarding possible transfer of real property by the City of Converse to the district. C, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, attorney consultation regarding legal issues related to potential, anticipated, or pending construction, litigation, and construction issues. D, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, the board will consult with its legal counsel regarding pending litigation in the matter styled Mercedes Fuller versus Judson ISD. And E, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, attorney consultation regarding legal issues related to board operating procedures. Again, at this time, it is 7:57, and we will go into closed session.
Brianna, if you see Mark
The time is 9:36, and we are going to reconvene into open session. Do I have a motion for the items in closed session?
One by one.
Consider and take possible action regarding the personnel report and updates, including new hires, resignations, and administrative appointments. Chief Communications Officer.
I move we approve the personnel report as presented in closed session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll start with Mr. Diaz.
Rafa Diaz, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer.
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. King.
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Eaton.
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Ms. Perez.
Lynette Perez, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Dr. Ball, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes, ma'am, I would. I would like to congratulate our new Chief Communication Officer, Dr. Nicole Taganoff. And in case any... And in case anybody doesn't know, she is having a baby.
Item B, discussion and appropriate action regarding acceptance of a transfer of ownership of real property, Converse City Pool, from the City of Converse to Judson ISD. Is there a motion? There's no action, okay. Item C, consider and take possible action regarding legal issues related to potential, anticipated, or pending construction litigation and construction issues.
I move to approve the settlement agreement as discussed in executive session in lawsuit styled Judson Independent School District versus Joris General Contractors Limited et al., cause number 2018 CI 1830 in the 224th Judicial District of Bexar County, Texas, and to authorize the superintendent to execute all documents necessary to finalize settlement.
I'll second that, and we will start with Ms. King.
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Eaton.
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Ms. Perez.
Lynette Perez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer.
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Mr. Diaz.
Rafa Diaz, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Item D, consider and take action regarding pending litigation in the matter styled Mercedes Fuller versus Judson ISD, cause number 2018C11 85075 in the District Court 285th Judicial District, Bexar County, Texas. Is there a motion? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. There's no action taken on that item. Item 9, consider and take possible action to accept the resignation of Board Member Lynette Perez in District 7 at large. Is there a motion?
I regretfully move to accept the resignation of Board Member and Secretary Lynette Perez.
Is there a regretful second?
I can second that regretfully.
It has been moved and seconded, and we will start with Ms. King.
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Eaton.
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Ms. Canoyer.
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Mr. Diaz.
Rafa Diaz, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. And motion passes. And again, it's going to be, it's bittersweet that we have to let her go, but we know that she's going to be successful where she is in Arkansas. So we wish you well.
Thank you.
And thank you for the lovely gifts that each of us got at the dais tonight. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Number 10, let us take nominations for the Judson ISD Board Secretary. I will open the floor for nominations, and
Madam President, I'd
Yes,
like to
ma'am.
nominate Ms. Rodriguez.
I'll second that nomination.
nomination Ms. Rodriguez. Are there any other nominations? I will nominate Deborah Eaton. We will start with Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. King,
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Eaton,
Deborah Eaton, aye. Oh, wait.
you can say no. Yes,
You might
ma'am.
want to clarify that what you're doing.
I'm sorry?
I think there might be confusion.
We have two nominations. Did I not do that correctly?
There was not a second on the second nomination.
Thank you. Is there a second for Ms. Eaton? Since there is no second, then we will have to by acclamation. We'll have to do that then. So I still start with Ms. Rodriguez, correct? Can we? All those that are in favor of Ms. Rodriguez, please raise your hand. There's all six, and then, well, then motion passes unanimously then for Ms. Rodriguez. Congratulations, Ms. Rodriguez. At our next board meeting, you will be getting all of the stuff to sign.
I'll give you my pen.
Item 11, consider and take possible action regarding approving the method to fill the vacancy and the timeline for the appointment of the Board of Trustees vacancy created by the resignation of Board Member Lynette Perez in District 7 at large. Dr. Ball?
Yes, my computer signed off, so let me just get that
Okay.
document. I apologize. It's not here. The timeline?
The timeline?
Uh-huh. Unless I'm missing it, Betty, do you have it?
No, I thought it was on board doc.
Unless I'm not,
Has it changed from
no, it
the
hasn't.
one that was in the Friday notes?
No, it has not changed at all. I
Okay.
just,
So I can go to my Friday notes and,
I don't see it attached to,
it's not?
yeah, it's on, let me, go to,
Where was that timeline? I thought it was
it was, I did put it in.
in the Friday notes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. So the timeline would be that the applications would open November 20th, which is tomorrow. They would close on December the 4th. They would close at 4:30. There would then be a special board meeting on December the 10th to screen the candidates. That would be at 6 o'clock. On December the 14th, there would be a special board meeting for the candidates to be interviewed by the current board between 6 to 9. And then on December the 17th, we would be taking, the board would have a recommendation for a new appointment of 2 board members.
Okay, so the 17th would be the appointment.
Yes, ma'am.
With the swearing in?
Appointment and swear-in, all
Okay.
all together. So I'd like to read something just to have clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The Board of Trustees is seeking applications to fill the vacant trustee position for District 4 and District 7. Applications may be submitted to Betty Holmes, Secretary to the Board of Trustees at Judson Independent School District, 8012 Chinook Drive, Live Oak, Texas. They will be accepted until 4:30 December the 4th. All this information will be found on our website. Applications received after this date and time will not be considered. The application form is available on our website or through Betty Holmes in the superintendent's office and must be fully completed and notarized. Applications submitted electronically, including email applications, cannot be accepted. Applicants must reside within the District 4 or the at-large position, which is District 7, and meet certain eligibility requirements as stated in the application. The selected applicants will serve their unexpired term until a general election is held in May of 2021. At any time, you may call for more information, 210-945-5101.
I would just like to add that, would you be very specific when you say District 4? Would you please say single-member District 4 so that the community will be very aware that that is a single-member district as opposed to District 7, which is at large?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So the two trustee positions that Judson ISD is looking for is a position for a single member for position District 4 and an at-large position for District 7. Thank you, ma'am, for the clarification.
I move we approve the timeline as presented.
I'll second.
Timeline has been moved and seconded, and we will start then with Ms. King.
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Eaton?
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Ms. Canoyer? Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know whether or not we should include Ms. Perez.
Aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
And Mr. Diaz?
Rafa Diaz, aye.
And Renee Pichelle, aye. That vote passes unanimously. Item 12, consider and take possible action to accept the resignation of Rafa Diaz Jr., single-member District 4. Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am.
And shall we all go to the floor? Yes, let's all go to the floor.
Yes, yes. So we, Judson ISD, would like to present this plaque to Mr. Rafa Diaz to honor your service on the Judson ISD Board of Trustees. Your guidance as a member has strengthened the board between the community and the district. We thank you very much, sir, for your service. Would you like to say a few words?
Got it.
He won't cry.
No. So thank you. I'm not going to cry this time. I appreciate it. Y'all heard me the first time. Very much appreciate the time on the board and looking forward to continuing to serve the district in any capacity in the future. Thanks to my wife for being here after a full week of her duties on the State Board of Education since Monday and making sure that not only the voices of the local community go up to Austin, but also making sure that that the concerns of Austin and the direction is brought back down to the community, making sure that we go, both ways. So appreciate it.
I didn't know what was going on. The Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Is there a motion? Can we have a motion, please, for item 12?
I regretfully move, again, to accept the resignation of Rafael Diaz Jr., Single Member District 4.
And I regretfully second.
All right, has been made and seconded, and we will start then with Ms. King.
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Eaton.
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Ms. Perez.
Lynette Perez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer.
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Does he vote? Renee Pichelle, aye. 13, consider and take action regarding approving the method to fill the vacancy and the timeline for the appointment of the Board of Trustees vacancies created by the resignation of Board Member Rafa Diaz Jr. in Single Member District 4.
Madam President, we would like to propose the same timeline, opening up the timeline for applications tomorrow, November 20th, closing them December the 4th at 4:30. Also holding a special board meeting to screen the candidates on December the 10th at 6. Special board meeting to interview the candidates on December the 14th from 6 to 9. Then having a board meeting on December the 17th, which at that time, there will be the appointment and the swearing in of the new board member.
All righty, thank you. Is there a second?
Madam President, I second that.
I move to approve the timeline as presented.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask for the motion. Thank you for the motion, and the second came from Ms. Eaton?
Yes.
Thank you. And we will start then with Ms. King.
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Eaton?
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Ms. Perez?
Lynette Perez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right, if there's no further business, the time now is 9:53, and this meeting is adjourned. Happy